In preparation for the soon-to-be-released Ashlands update, you might be replaying and re-experiencing Valheim. But maybe you're kinda dreading entering into the treacherous Mistlands once again. Or perhaps you started your Mistlands adventures, but quickly rage quit because of how punishing it can be. According to a recent poll I conducted on my channel, most of my subscribers believe the Mistlands to be the most punishing biome in Valheim. And I think there's a lot of merit behind that statement. The Mistlands are infested with hyper-aggressive, heavily armored and flying bugs, giant floating flamethrower jellyfish, swarms of blood-sucking neck-kissing ticks, and short-tempered, magic-wielding dwarves who will defend you to the last man unless you accidentally step on one of their toes. And the terrain is often worse than the enemies. One wrong step and you will plummet to certain death. Oh, and don't get me started on not being able to see. The Mistlands is inherently a pretty scary biome, but it doesn't have to be a miserable time, making you want to Alt F4 uninstall the game and light your gaming system on fire. If you go in unprepared, you're probably gonna have a bad time, but you don't need to have a bad time. The Mistlands is an absolutely gorgeous biome, and the enemies, while dangerous, aren't really that bad if you have a bit of knowledge. So here is my comprehensive guide to surviving the Mistlands. Spoilers ahead for the Mistlands biome, mostly for the enemies and terrain. I'm going to try to keep these tips danger related and keep the overall game progression a mystery for you to experience yourself. If you want a full guide on progression, this isn't it. But if you want a little help staying alive, you're in the right place. Let's do this. The prep phase. Wait for a Wisplight. While it is certainly possible to venture into the Mistlands before defeating Yagluth and unlocking the Wisplight, it's kind of a bad time. It's already difficult enough to see in the Mistlands. Why make it nearly impossible? The Wisplight is designed to repel the mist, allowing you to actually see enemies in your near vicinity. So instead of going in blind, bring a Wisplight. Beyond just the Wisplight, you may also want to carry around a few extra wisps, because once you've gotten some Yggdrasil wood, you can throw down some wisp torches. These torches don't need fuel, and they'll do a good job at clearing the mist around you while providing you with a bit of light, so they're pretty handy. Bring adventuring portals. I'd recommend bringing 2 portals into the Mistlands. One you can place down maybe by your boat or in a secure area, like in a meadows biome that's right next to the Mistlands, or perhaps in a house you made or an abandoned black marble tower you've already stumbled upon. The other portal you can take with you so you can quickly get back home to drop off materials. Sure, this is kind of basic Valheim exploration stuff, but I think it's especially important in the Mistlands, as dying can occur often. And if you haven't put a portal up yet, and the materials are in your rotting corpse, it's not so fun. A backup portal comes in handy. Look after my portal, guys. I'm trusting you. Prepare potions and food. Trust me, you're gonna need a lot of potions and all the best foods. Not only will they help you survive and keep your stamina up, but they'll also help you block more damage. With a well-timed parry, pretty much all enemies perish quickly. We're talking about Serpent stew, lox meat pie, bread, fish wraps, and blood pudding. But some wolf skewers, onion soup, and wolf jerky will be good as a backup option. I'd recommend 2 health foods and 1 stamina food to start out, until you really get the hang of things in the Mistlands. This will allow you to take a few extra hits and stay alive. Then, once you're more familiar and maybe have even the better food options, I'm personally a fan of using 2 stamina foods and only 1 health food. This will allow you to be a whole lot more maneuverable and fight back for longer. But you won't be able to take as many hits before you perish. This technique does take practice, but it can be very efficient. Oh, and don't forget to bring your meads. Potions are incredibly clutch, so grab some health and stamina meads and a couple barley wines. Fire resistance is helpful, but we'll talk about that later. Frost arrows for the win. While nothing is particularly vulnerable to frost damage in the Mistlands, frost damage is incredibly powerful against all enemies that want to kill you. Frost has a slowing effect against enemies, so if you've got 3 seekers on the way to kill you, slowing 1 or 2 of them down can be the difference between engaging 1 in melee combat or dying to 3 at once. Also, frost damage is extra effective to enemies with the wet condition, and that can be pretty common in the Mistlands, especially once you venture into the infested mines. Seekers are resistant to the normal pierce damage of regular arrows, so having arrows with an extra effect like frost will be the best for damage too. The right boss power. I think the best Forsaken power to bring into the Mistlands is Bone Mass. The Bone Mass power, in my opinion, is the best power in the game. It provides resistance to most types of damage, blunt, slash, and pierce. Seekers dish out mostly pierce damage, with some blunt, so having the ability to negate 50 to 75% of that damage is kinda nice. A runner-up power would be Atgeirs power, as it reduces the cost of stamina usage for running and jumping by 60%, but in my opinion, canceling out more damage is more helpful for now, at least until you get more familiar with enemies in the Mistlands. But sure, having enough stamina to run away or fight is very important. Armor. As far as armor is concerned, there are a lot of schools of thought here, but I personally think that the best bet is to go for the full padded armor. Sure, it makes you a bit slower than other types of armor, but since there's no Plains-tier light armor to mix with, and mixing with the Fenris set doesn't really get you much additional plus side, I'm personally partial to just embracing the speed debuff of the heavy armor and enjoying a bit more damage negation, at the very least for a while, until you get more familiar with the biome. The full padded armor will be able to take multiple hits while keeping you alive. So we got fully upgraded padded armor. We're gonna put it on and we're gonna see what the number is. I'm using the red linen cape for this. Exactly 100 armor, fully upgraded with the linen cape. That's pretty fantastic. So now let's do a little bit of testing. All right, I just took 2 health foods and 1 stamina food. So I have a massive amount of health right now. Let's spawn a Seeker. All right, go ahead. Just hit me. Just do what you want to do. It doesn't matter. I can take quite a few hits like this. This armor actually is pretty good and more than good enough for the Mistlands. So that's pretty much it right there. So I'm just gonna go ahead and kill you. Pretty solid. Yeah, I felt really good in this armor. In contrast, the full Fenris set is a pretty decent contender for the Mistlands, but it's not without its flaws. Mainly, it's a mountain tier light armor, so it won't provide a huge amount of protection overall. You may be able to still take a couple hits, but it can be very dangerous. Fire resistance is nice, but a barley wine will do just fine for that. On the plus side, the Fenris set will keep you extremely fast, and speed is very helpful for dodging and evading. If the Fenris set and speed overall has been your playstyle, it can definitely work in the Mistlands with some caution. Okay, so this is also fully upgraded and I've got the black linen cape with this. We've still got 2 health foods and 1 stamina food. So instead of 100, this almost cuts it in half. Wow. Okay. This should still be okay though. So let's spawn a Seeker and, you know, let's see what it does. It's, yeah, definitely I can take fewer hits, but I can take a few. I can take a few good hits. So it really isn't that bad. And I'm much faster. Look at how fast I am. So fast, you can't even hit me, can you? And just run out of the way. Oh, okay, well, that didn't go well. Alright, another Seeker here. And you can tell that I'm not too terribly slow. I can still maneuver quite nicely, but it's movement speed -5 for each item. Well, I guess the 2, the cuirass and the legs. So it's -10 movement speed, but it's not that significant. But it is significant compared to the buff that you get from the Fenris set. So I still feel pretty maneuverable when I'm doing this, but when I've got this out, it does also reduce my movement speed by another 5%, and then I break out the shield, and then yeah, so that's another 5%. So it's fine, it's doable. Like, look, I'm pretty fast, but pull these out. It's definitely not ideal, but then let me just go ahead and switch out. All right, full Fenris set, you can see that it gives me movement speed +3, movement speed +3, and then movement speed +3. So that's an additional 9%. That's pretty fantastic. So pull these out, and yeah, I'm about as fast as I would normally be naked. That's pretty good. And I can still take some hits if I use double health foods, but if I use double stamina foods, that's a slightly different story. But you know, just you're fast, just don't get hit. Finally, Seekers deal primarily pierce damage, so if you happen to have a Root Harnesk laying around, it might be worth fully upgrading and bringing it with you. The Root Harnesk provides resistance to pierce damage, so it's a fantastic way to stay alive when you're being swarmed by bugs, because again, they mostly deal out pierce damage, so that's pretty handy. Yeah, it looks a little goofy, especially with the Fenris set, but, you know, you're still fast, you're still maneuverable, and if I spawn a Seeker, I probably negate a whole lot more damage. It doesn't feel like it's that much, but yeah, Seekers are mostly pierce, so this is going to help you stay alive. And I'm still fast, but go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. Yeah, I do feel like it's negating a whole lot more damage versus just the Fenris set. I do lose 2 armor, but it's not that big of a deal. Oh, okay, all right, almost dead. Get out of here. Fabulous. Okay, so yeah, Fenris set, but the root chest piece is pretty solid, and of course, it would only get better with the padded armor, but that pierce resistance comes in handy. One thing to be aware of is how the burning effect works in Valheim. So, as you might know, the Fenris set does give you a resistance to fire, and so does barley wine. So, if you put on armor, you also can't be burnt. This is something that I just learned, actually, because I'll demonstrate. I jump in the fire, I get lit on fire. So, this is not good. Burning, I'm on fire. Yeah, so that status, not so fun. So I put on just a little bit of armor, and as long as it's above 26, I could stand here all day. And I cannot be burning. I will not be burning. I will still take some fire damage, 10, 10, 10, 2, 10, yeah. But I won't be lit on fire. So that's actually something interesting to know, because I always thought that you could be lit on fire by anything. Now that doesn't necessarily translate to you fighting Gjall in the Mistlands. So I'm just gonna find this nice flat space right here. Ideally without fighting other things, but I'm gonna spawn a Gjall and I'm gonna get lit on fire, and I'm just gonna have the full padded armor set on right now. You know what? I'm pushing K to kill, so I don't get attacked by other things right now. So let's just spawn 1 Gjall. Hey buddy, light me on fire. Light me on fire. Do it. Do it. I dare ya. Okay. Here we go. There we go. So yeah, you can clearly see that I am on fire, even though I have more than 26 armor. So that was not so great. Normally, you take a barley wine. That is the standard practice for this. So I'm gonna heal up, and I'm gonna take another hit. Let's just fight these guys while we're waiting. Thank you. So I'm burning. I believe I'm taking less damage. I think that's what's going on there. But yeah, it still really hurts. It's not going to completely negate all fire damage, but it will make it significantly less damaging. Okay, same thing going on. I've got the full Fenris set on. I removed my status of the barley wine, so let's do that again. Spawning a Gjall. Here, have a little hit. That does not affect you. All right, fire. Yeah, I'm definitely taking quite a bit of damage, but it's not too crazy because I have fire resistance. And let's just take a look. Yep, resistance to fire. I don't necessarily need a barley wine with the Fenris set, but you only get that if you're using all 3 items. So the last thing we'll look at in this sequence is the Root Harnesk. So we've got the full padded set, and I just put on the Root Harnesk, and now that gives me resistance to pierce. So if you're running around the Mistlands with the Root Harnesk on, whether it's the Fenris set or the padded set, you may want the Root Harnesk. It does reduce your armor quite substantially because this will give you 32, while this gives you 14, and we're talking 16 versus 14, so not a huge difference with the Fenris set, but if you are full padded armor, this will reduce your overall armor by a lot, but it kind of makes up for it since you do get that resistance to pierce. But the problem with root armor is that you have a weakness to fire. So when I spawn another Gjall, this won't be too great. This is not going to be too great. I'm going to take a lot of damage very quickly. Yeah, okay, all right, already got a heal. I pushed the H button. I am very, very weak to fire right now. But all I have to do, I popped a barley wine, and now I'm back to normal. I have a resistance to fire. It completely negates that weakness to fire. So this might be the best of both worlds, although, yeah, this is problematic. Still have to be moderately good at the game. Yeah, go ahead, light me on fire. I don't like it, but I don't absolutely hate it, even though I'm wearing the root armor. Conclusion on the basic section on armor. Basically, this might be the best of both worlds, where you get that resistance to pierce, you still have a little bit of speed, but you can just take barley wines and you'll be perfectly fine. But if you're going with the full Fenris set, yeah, you don't need barley wines at all. You're super speedy, you're super maneuverable, and that can be very nice. But you gotta be very careful because you're kinda squishy. So maybe throw in the root Harnesk. But then you'll have to bring barley wines. Bring the right weapon. Seekers are resistant to all standard types of damage, and not really weak to anything, so no one damage type will be more effective than the rest. Bring any weapon you've been using for a long time, are familiar with, and have nicely leveled up. But if there's one weapon that consistently shines above the rest, it's the Frostner. Not only will the knockback effect of clubs be helpful for keeping enemies back while you try to stay alive, but the Frostner's frost effect will slow enemies down, helping you focus on one thing at a time. But you may be wondering if the Porcupine might be a better choice for the Mistlands, since the Frostner is a mountain tier weapon and the Porcupine is plains tier. It should be better, right? Well, actually it's not. Frostner will actually do more damage to Seekers compared to the Porcupine. Seekers are resistant to blunt, pierce, and slash damage, but not resistant to elemental damage like the frost damage the Frostner provides. So for comparison, a max level Porcupine will deal 50 blunt and 63 pierce damage, but you need to cut both of those in half because of the Seeker's resistances. So it'll deal a combined 56.5 damage. A maxed out Frostner in comparison deals 35 blunt, 58 frost, and 20 spear damage. Seekers are completely immune to spear damage, so kill that 20 right away. So we got 35 blunt damage, cut it in half, that's 17.5. But then add the full 58 frost damage on top of that, and you get 75.5 damage. That's almost 20 more damage compared to the Porcupine. Aside from clubs, swords are generally my go-to weapon for tackling the Mistlands. I love how fast they are to swing, they do a great job at handling hordes of enemies, and it's easy to get a 3-hit combo in dealing max damage, since they don't have a knockback effect that the clubs do, which can be a good thing, but it can also be a little more dangerous since they're closer and they can attack you right away. But they're just good all-around weapons, and I'm a fan of the way they work in the game, and they're just cool. But looking at it scientifically, a level 4 Blackmetal sword will do 113 slash damage, which comes out to only 56.5 damage to Seekers because of their resistances. So by technicality, a Frostner will still be a better weapon, but it's also not just a game of pure damage numbers. The sword's mechanics are different, and the 3-hit combos can be very nice, but the frost damage slowing Seekers, that just really can't be beat. I'm also personally partial to Atgeirs, as they are one of the best weapons for handling large crowds of enemies, and in the Mistlands that's not uncommon. Atgeirs can be stamina hogs, but if you've been fighting with them for a long time, you're kind of used to it, you know what to expect, and they're a fantastic companion. Knives are also fantastic weapons throughout the Mistlands. Their fast attack speed can be deadly, so despite a Seeker's resistances, you can just keep attacking and kill them without much effort whatsoever. I normally gravitate to the larger weapon options, but knives always seem to impress me when I break them out of their box. They're ruthless contenders for the best weapon type in the game, and there's no doubt they're effective in the Mistlands. One thing I did notice while recording the sequence for this video, the fully upgraded Blackmetal knife I'm using doesn't seem to have the ability to parry a Seeker, so keep a shield with you at all times, I guess. I'll also say that spears are solid options as well, since they can be thrown for additional sneaky damage, and they're just all-around effective weapons, fast and efficient. But there's no new spear from the plains, so we're still working with the Fang Spear. It's a good spear, but I just feel like there are better options out there. Another good companion I'd probably consider almost vital in the Mistlands will be the Iron Sledge. Sledges are slow, sure, but they do a great job at tackling hordes of enemies, and especially groups of ticks all vying for your blood at the same time. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the section on enemies, but basically a sledge is a fantastic companion, and while it may not come out often, when it is used, it can be clutch. It probably goes without saying, but don't leave your bow behind when entering the Mistlands. The Draugr is your best bet for now, and frost arrows and maybe some needle arrows are going to be very handy for fighting things at a distance, especially Gjalls, which you'll pretty much never be able to melee. Finally, my next advice might upset some people, but I tend to believe one-handed axes are tools, not weapons, especially in the Mistlands. Compared to pretty much all other weapons in the game, axes have one of the slowest swings, and against Seekers, you're just not going to have a good time. Sure, they'll work, they'll get the job done. They're not technically ineffective, but there are so many better choices out there. You'll need a Blackmetal axe to chop Yggdrasil trees, but in my opinion, that's its one and only use. Leave the combat to the real weapons. But if you've found that you enjoy using axes as weapons, feel free to give it a shot. Your mileage may vary. These are only my opinions. One additional weapon option that'll definitely come in handy are Ooze Bombs. In the Mistlands, there will be many times when a large horde of enemies wants your blood all at the same time, so being able to throw down a little yucky grenade to poison them all will be very handy. They're even more handy when you enter the dreaded infested mines. Lots of close quarters combat in there. Ooze Bombs create a cloud of poison in a 4-meter radius, which makes it so that anything affected takes 40 poison damage over 7 seconds. If the enemy stays in the cloud, the damage is refreshed. Quick note, you cannot get harmed by your own Ooze Bombs. That's just handy knowledge to know. Bombs are just really great additions to the team against almost any enemy. Ooze Bombs are awesome for now, but soon you'll unlock Bile Bombs, and those are even more effective against Seekers and super handy for infested mines. Upgrade your gear. If you're running into the Mistlands with level 1 gear,
why are you the way that you are?
I would highly recommend taking the time to farm the resources to get your stuff up to max level, especially if you're a shield user. Get that Blackmetal shield up to level 3 and you'll be able to confidently parry almost anything. While recording the sequence for this video, I found out that even a level 1 Blackmetal shield can parry a 1-star Seeker, but obviously a level 2 or 3 is going to be better. And if you go up against a 2-star Seeker, sometimes, depending on these Seeker's attacks, the level 3 Blackmetal shield can parry it one time, but not all of its attacks can be parried, it seems. Or the Serpent scale shield would be a good option, which gives you pierce resistance. So if you look at this 1-star Seeker, I'm noticing something about it. So basically, that right there is pierce. That's definitely a pierce attack. That is not a pierce attack, but maybe it was. That's pierce. Okay. Maybe this is not the way I thought it would be. All right, here we go. Yeah. Sometimes this thing is fantastic. Sometimes it just doesn't work perfectly. Because not all of the attacks the Seekers have are pierce. Like, I don't think that one is. That one's definitely pierce. That one's not pierce. I think that's their blunt attack. But yeah, you can notice which attacks are and which aren't pierce because the Serpent scale shield has pierce resistance. Yeah, but it can handle it quite well. This is fully upgraded. But I just wanted to emphasize that. You can kind of tell which attacks are and are not pierce. Just, you know, using this. Ouch, okay. While level 1 padded armor can tank a couple hits from a Seeker, upgraded armor is obviously going to be more protective. Trust me, it's worth it. And above all else, I'd say get your weapons to max level. That'll help you dispatch enemies quicker. So, upgrade your stuff. Arrival. Understand the terrain. Terrain in the Mistlands is kind of reminiscent of the mountains, except there are way more places to fall from, more jagged rocks, and to me at least, it's much more difficult and annoying to traverse. It'll never be easy, but it is possible to navigate this terrain without dying from falling all the damn time. At least as of this current pre-Ashlands update, your character in Valheim will never take more than 100 damage from falling. You could jump from the highest peak and land on the lowest rocky ground, and if you have 101 health, you'll be fine. I can't speak for what may or may not be waiting for you at the bottom, but fall damage in Valheim is limited to a max of 100 damage. Keep that in mind while you're exploring. The best thing you can do is just to be careful. Take the time to observe the terrain around you and slide down the rocks where you can. You can usually slow your fall by facing the rock wall and walking or sprinting in that direction, but it doesn't always work. Just take your time, if you can. When it comes to combat, sometimes the terrain is more annoying than the enemies in the Mistlands. Best advice I can give, always try to bring Seekers to flat terrain, if you can. That way, your swings won't go right over their dumb bug faces. The one not so great thing about Valheim is fighting on uneven terrain. There's no way to swing your weapon at an upward angle or a downward angle, and it'll always seem like enemies won't have that problem. So just bring them to level ground. Adventure during the day. This is pretty much advice for most biomes, but it's always best to go home and rest at night and do your adventuring during the day. According to the wiki, packs of the respective biomes' hostile mobs spawn more frequently at night, and some mobs only spawn at night, like starred seekers, so harder to see, more bad guys, and tougher bad guys. Yeah, probably best to leave the adventuring to the daylight if you can. Know your friends. Dverger, however you want to pronounce it, I just call them dwarven friends. These dwarves are, as you can see, completely harmless, which is a nice change of pace in the Mistlands and in Valheim in general. They'll fight alongside you if an enemy is near, but be careful. They're easy to anger and will turn on you if you accidentally hurt one of them, or if you break one of their structures. You may be exploring one of their towers and find a nice, tasty-looking crate. Perhaps there's something you need to actually progress in the game inside that crate. But if you break it, even if they're not watching, they will know, and they'll throw everything they have at you to stop you from escaping with your life. You've now made an enemy of the dwarves in this specific area, not all dwarves in the Mistlands, so at least there's that. If this happens, run for your life. But you may not need to betray your dwarven friends, as there is at least one special, super sneaky tactic you can use to get the sap extractor and materials without making enemies of the dwarves. A special tactic. This is a bit on the exploity side of the scale, so think twice about using this. But if you want to avoid pissing off the dwarves, here's how to do it. Make a cart near their tower, then bring it to the tower and smash their ward over and over. You may have to go out and repair the cart a couple times, but eventually the ward will break. And it technically won't be your fault. It'll be the cart's fault. You didn't do anything. What's going on? I don't know what you're talking about. This will pretty much give you free access to all of the resources in their tower, and you can just destroy the box containing the sap extractor. I guess because you're not technically attacking through their ward, they don't really care. So that's good. You don't need to make enemies of the dwarves. And you won't need to flee for your life as they try to shoot you with crazy powerful fireballs and bolts. An unfortunate fight. If the worst does come to pass, and you do have to fight one or more dwarves, I'd say your best bet is to run for your life. Stay away, flee, and maybe cry a little bit as they shoot bolts and throw crazy powerful fireballs at the back of your head. It might be tough, but just try to get away. If you want to stand and fight, your best bet is going to be to separate them and kill them individually. They're not too tough if you can get them alone, so if you're able to separate them, they'll go down quick enough. There are two primary types of Dverger, rogues and mages. Rogues pretty much all look the same, and they carry crossbows, which pack a pretty hefty punch and deal pierce and blunt damage. Mages are arguably much more deadly compared to rogues. There can also be three types of mages: fire, ice, and support. Fire mages have 3 fire attacks. They can launch huge fireballs at you, shoot a barrage of fireballs that rains down from the sky, and they have a spell that creates a huge field of fire on the ground. These guys can be pretty nasty. Ice mages can bash the ground with their staff, which deals frost damage in a small area around them, and they can shoot you with 3 shards of ice like a machine gun, which will hit hard and slow you down. I'd almost say these guys are the ones to watch out for because of that slowing effect. Support mages only have 1 single damaging attack, which summons magic exploding missiles that'll seek you out and probably kill you. But they can also heal themselves and their comrades, which recovers up to 400 health over a few seconds. They also have a buff that'll increase the damage of their allies for 20 seconds. yeah, these guys are probably the ones you should focus on first if you're going to be fighting dwarves. All Dverger are very deadly, so obviously try not to fight them at all, and it's actually not necessary to progress in the Mistlands, so keep them friendly and happy, and just maybe they'll come in handy when you've got a Gjall wanting to light you on fire. Know your enemies. As we've already discussed, the Mistlands is chock full of hostile and aggressive creatures, so let's go into depth and learn some of their attack patterns and best tactics to fight them. Seekers are the main common enemy you'll be fighting in the Mistlands. Seekers are very fast and aggressive enemies. At first, they can feel very intimidating, but after you've spent some time with them and you've learned their attack patterns, they're honestly kinda cake. Only particularly dangerous in large groups or on hard or very hard difficulty. Seekers do mostly pierce damage with some blunt mixed in. Their abilities include bite, claw, and double claw. Let's take a look at their attack patterns and behavior. So I've spawned a Seeker right here, and I'm kind of just looking at the way that it's attacking so you can get a good idea of when to parry. So both individual, I guess, legs, the front legs, will attack very quickly, but there's a slow 2-arm attack. But yeah, you can see that's a very quick attack, and then it kind of just does what it wants. All right, go for it, whatever. And then slow 2-arm attack. Fast 1-arm. It's got a fast bite as well, so you can tell when it's going to do the big ol' slow one, but you can also kind of predict when it's going to do the individual ones, but those do come very quickly. So if you have multiple Seekers on you at once, yeah, it can get a little rough, but it's not too terrible once you kind of get used to it. But I'm just going to kill this one. And we'll spawn 3. Alright, now things get a little bit complicated because you have to predict the attacks and you kind of have to run around them and get behind them while watching out for the rest. There's one right there, moving around, and I'm going to hit. This is where the Frostner really comes in handy. Because as you can see, they're slowed. So the ones that I'm not attacking will kind of stay out of the way, and I can focus on the individual. That's kind of nice. But yeah, you just gotta be familiar and be careful. But yeah, it's good to just know their attacks and just know when to parry. But it's not that bad once you get used to it, but also, you know, you gotta still be good. Come on, come on. Yeah, once you get used to it, it's not that bad. Just, you know, a shield that actually works is good, but yeah, a Frostner can parry just fine on its own, but you see that the block bar is quite almost completely maxed out, so yeah, a shield will be better. Alright, now I'm spawning a 1-star Seeker. It's not going to behave any different from a regular Seeker, but you'll notice that even with a level 3 Blackmetal shield, this guy's really almost maxing out my block bar, so you gotta be very careful. But if we take a look at the frost slowing effect of the Frostner, it does a great job. But I don't think it slows him down nearly as long as a regular Seeker. Yeah, if you notice, I'll hit it once, and I don't know, I'm not gonna time it, but you can notice that it does recover quicker than normal Seekers did. But on a 1-star, it's still very effective in my experience. Cool. Okay, so now I'm going to spawn a 2-star Seeker. These guys are tough, but as you can see, the Blackmetal shield, fully upgraded, can actually parry most of its attacks. Not all of them, like we saw in the previous sections, but that bite attack right there, it'll do just fine. And ideally, you gotta learn how to dodge, but if I hit it with the Frostner, it will get pushed back, but it will recover very quickly from its frost. So yeah, look at this. Look at this. That's like 3 seconds, practically negligible, but it's not nothing. But let's do another parry with the Blackmetal shield. Nothing, and I'm almost dead with fully upgraded padded armor. That was absolutely terrible. Maybe I mistimed it. I don't think I did. I'm gonna heal up, and we're gonna try that again. It just depends on the attack. Sometimes you just need to get out of the way, like those are nasty. But those, it blocked all the damage, but it maxed me out, and I did get staggered. So not great, but I'm not dead. The bite was just fine. You can't really predict what it's going to do because it's so fast. But with 2-star Seekers, your best practice is going to be just to run away, forward roll, or Frostner, and just slowly whittle them down. Because with a 1-star Seeker, a 2-star Seeker, or really any Seeker, the Frostner is going to be the best weapon because it pushes them back, especially with a 2-star. Yeah, almost got me there. Oh, that was bad. But yeah, it'll push them back, and so you won't be able to be hit with their attack. So like this, like we'll see right here. Well, okay, bad example. If I push him back while he's attacking, he can't hit me, so that's really handy. But the swords, or the Atgeirs, they don't really have that unless you use the middle mouse. But that's where the Frostner, or clubs in general, really shine. If it's attacking, you hit it, it pushes them back, you won't get hit. On a 2-star Seeker, that could be bad. Seeker soldiers are non-flying, huge, heavily armored bugs with completely different looks and attack patterns compared to regular Seekers. Seeker soldiers deal a variety of different types of damage according to the wiki: blunt, chop, pickaxe, and slash. Their abilities include headbutt, bite, claw, and taunt. Unlike regular Seekers, soldiers actually have a weak spot. If you're able to get a good parry in, the Seeker will be stunned long enough for you to run around to their behind and deal yellow damage like this. Let's take a look at them in action. Okay, these guys, not that big of a trouble. They'll roar, they'll do whatever, they're very intimidating, and that first attack right there is very quick. That one is slow and easy to predict, and I just missed it, but you know, that one will always push you back no matter what. That's a fast one that you really need to be watching out for. But then it'll do this, and you can easily just block it. And then that one pushes you back. It's just a timing battle. That one right there is what I wait for to do the reach around. And you just gotta hit that butt. Okay, yeah, it's not that big of a trouble. But with the Frostner, it can't turn around very quickly. So that's also a nice use of the Frostner. Pretty easy attack pattern to learn, and you just gotta parry them, just like everything else. So let's spawn 1-star. These guys are exactly the same, but it gets tough because you want to be able to parry these guys, and you can't always do that. But I have a level 3 maxed out Blackmetal shield, and it's maxing out my bar. So I can do it, it works, but I have to really just slowly whittle it down, and man, they just hit so hard. I just hope, if I ever see a 2-star, I just don't think I'm gonna fight it. It's just not worth it, at least not in padded armor and Blackmetal shield. But the Frostner isn't really pushing it back too much. The knockback of clubs on Seeker soldiers, it's not that much because they're big, they're heavy, and they're just annoying. So with these guys, your best bet, if you don't have the Blackmetal shield, your best bet's probably going to be to just run away or dodge, like a forward roll into their chest, like this, like that, and boom. And you usually don't have time to do a 3-hit combo like that, but I'm pretty used to the attack patterns of soldiers. They're not that bad, but these guys, of course, like I said, they hit hard, so you gotta get out of the way if you can. Watch out, yep. It's not too bad. Well, we might as well spawn a 2-star, full purple. Wow, that's cool looking. Looks like a 1-star regular Seeker. I doubt I'm gonna... Yeah, okay, no parries for these guys. So I'm just gonna have to be very squirrely. Yeah, just dodge out of the way, and my Frostner's gonna do pretty much nothing. But stay out of the range of that attack, and it'll be generally not completely terrible. Okay, yeah, I'm just learning the attacks. Get out of the way, and little yellow damage. No, I missed. All right, you can't always hit it, but I just gotta be aware of the attack patterns. Okay, I would have died there, but I have God mode on for demonstration purposes. Oh, these guys are tough. Seeker soldiers aren't really that big of a problem. They're usually pretty predictable and easy, though the fights tend to last longer than others, so it can be easy to get impatient, at least for me. What makes it more of a challenge is when you're fighting a soldier and a horde of enemies comes to play as well. Fighting multiple things at once makes everything a whole lot more difficult, but just try to focus on one thing at a time. Gjalls, or as I like to call them, sky jellyfish, are absolutely massive balloon-like creatures that fly around in the sky just waiting to light you on fire or swarm you with ticks. Gjalls are one of the worst and most annoying enemies in the game, and sadly, you can't just pop their dumb balloon sacks and fight their struggling corpses on the ground. You need to fight them with ranged attacks, so this is where a bow comes in handy. Gjalls have a few abilities: Fireball, Shake, Spawn 3 ticks, and Taunt. Fortunately for us, sky jellies have a weak spot. They have a bright orange egg sac at the bottom section of their bodies, which just happens to nicely be exposed since they fly above you. Shoot that for huge, super effective yellow damage. It's pretty much the only tactic, but it won't be super simple since they'll be spawning ticks for you to handle on the ground. Another great tactic for Gjalls is to bring them to friendly dwarven towers or outposts, and your friends will be glad to help you dispatch the sky jelly as quickly as possible. Ticks are one of the most frustrating enemies in all of Valheim. Not because they're particularly difficult or hard to kill. Not at all. They just usually come at you in hordes of like 3 to 8 at a time. Dealing with ticks is never easy. If they latch onto your neck, they're gonna do a lot of damage very quickly. 50 pierce damage every half second to be exact. A whole lot more if you get star ticks. The best way to deal with ticks is to use the sledge to burst them all at once. Sledges deal damage in wide bubbles, and ticks can't take much damage, so this is the best way. You can also block a tick when it's jumping at you. That's fantastic. If you are unlucky enough to get a tick on your neck, sometimes a standard attack or two will get rid of them, especially if they're on the front of your neck. But if that's not working, your best bet is always going to be the good old-fashioned dodge roll. That'll force them off, and maybe they'll just try to jump right back on, but if you have a bit of stamina, you can give them a good old slash, and that should take care of them. One quick tip. Now, I won't go too in-depth on items you'll eventually unlock or the item progressions in the Mistlands, but I will say one thing. Once you gain access to the Black Forge and the Galder table, make the Galder table first, and prioritize making that feather cape. This one thing alone will make your Mistlands adventures much easier going forward. The Mistlands is definitely one of the most hostile and punishing biomes in all of Valheim, but hopefully now you feel a little bit more prepared to tackle it confidently. You're probably still gonna die. Theory is always easier than reality, but knowledge is very important and it can mean the difference between a few deaths and rage quitting from an infinite death loop, never opening the game ever again. Valheim is definitely a very individual game. Everybody's experiences are different, so if you have any additional tips or want to add something to the conversation, I encourage you to leave a comment. I feel like I'm pretty thorough in my videos, but I always seem to miss something, and people do have differing opinions, so let's have a great conversation in the comments. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and maybe share this video with somebody who might be struggling in their journey through the Mistlands. There are membership and super thanks options to support the channel, but you just being here and enjoying the video is the best support I could ask for. Thanks for stopping by, and I hope you have a great day.